Okay, so we're now live. So I didn't think we were going to be doing a Bible study today, mostly because technical issues I said on a previous live, but we might be doing them from StreamYard from here on out. I don't know. We have to wait and see, but we're
Till I get
back. Hmm?
till I get a phone.
Till she gets a phone. So this is a story on Habakkuk, part 3. And Mara will be leading the study due to her doing more of the study because this was her idea, but we're following along. So with that, it's all you.
Okay, so we left off on Jonah, right? Pretty much.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I did what would be called chapters, but I did
Mhm.
they're called meditations in this book. I did
Okay.
today. I did uh 2 through 5. So I mean, if y'all have other things to do or places to be, you can just stop me in between. But meditation 2, it starts off with Hannah, and you know the story about Hannah. She was barren, she couldn't have kids. Um, so it starts off with, and I'll give credit to Dana Gresh because this is her study that I'm going through. So I'll start off reading, and then we can go into the Bible and stuff. So Hannah had trouble that made her tremble. How long had she prayed for a baby? We don't know. What we do know is that on this day has come to register her complaint with God in the temple. If wrestling and prayer were a competition, this woman would win every match. Eli the priest had never seen the likes of it. He accuses her of being drunk. No, not drunk, just whacked out with worry and filled up with frustration. Hannah tells Eli, I am a woman troubled in spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but I have been pouring out my soul before the Lord. That is in 1 Samuel 1:15. The word translated as pouring out is the Hebrew verb sapak. I don't know how to pronounce that, which means to shed, to spill, to be scattered. Um, this is not your neat and clean prayer list, but a spilling of a broken soul with no sense of where to be or when things might land. It was honest. Her vision is hyper focused on her barren womb, and God sees that too. But He also sees a barren nation. Maybe it's just me, but these special contacts are so hard to get used to. With one eye adjusting to the "it's not all about me" filter, and the other fitted with the "Bible is actually about the rescue of all nations" transition lens, I need a little time. I need to get the corrective lens prescribed yesterday by our great ophthalmologist. So that's how she starts that out. So in Habakkuk 1, um, kind of like the same kind of context is in First Samuel 3 verse 1. So Habakkuk 1:1 says, "This is the message that the prophet Habakkuk received in a vision." So going to First Samuel chapter 3 verse 1, if I can find, oh, I'm already in. Okay. So First Samuel chapter 3 verse 1 says, "And the child Samuel ministered unto the Lord before Eli, and the word of the Lord was precious in those days. There was no open vision." But in Habakkuk 1, verse 1, this is the message that the prophet Habakkuk received in a vision. So that's kind of cool to me. Um, Brandon, First Samuel 3,
1 Samuel 3
1 through
and
21.
1 through 21.
Yes. Yeah, no, there's a lot. There, like I've said, there is a lot. The passages get longer and longer the more I go on.
Okay, so 1 Samuel 3 verses 1 through 21.
Hmm.
Damn. Okay.
But there's questions about that whole passage.
Okay. Okay. Now the boy Samuel was ministering to the Lord before Eli, and the word of the Lord was rare in those days. There was no vision coming forth. For anyone who's wondering, I'm reading out of the modern English version, or the MEV for those who are wondering. At this time Eli was lying down in his place. Now his eyes had begun to grow weak, that he could not see, and the lamp of God had not yet gone out. And Samuel was lying down in the house of the Lord, where the ark of God was. Then the Lord called to Samuel, and he answered, Here I am. And he ran to Eli and said, Here I am, for you called to me. And he said, I did not call. Return, lie down again. And he went and lay down. The Lord called Samuel again, so Samuel arose and went to Eli and said, Here I am, for you called me. And he answered, I did not call, my son. Return, lie down again. Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord, nor the word of the Lord been revealed to him. But the Lord again called Samuel a third time, so he arose and went to Eli and said, Here I am, for you have called me. Then Eli understood that the Lord was calling to the boy. Therefore Eli said to Samuel, Go lie down, and it will be, if he calls you, that you will say, Speak, Lord, for your servant listens. So Samuel went and lay down in his place. The Lord came and stood, and he called, as at other times, Samuel, Samuel. Then Samuel said, Speak, for your servant listens. The Lord said to Samuel, See, I am doing something in Israel, which will make both ears ring of every one that hears it. In that day I will bring about against Eli everything which I have spoken with regard to his house, from beginning to end. For I told him that I will judge his house forever for the guilt which he knew, because his sons are cursed, and he did not rebuke them. Therefore I have sworn to the house of Eli that the iniquity of Eli's house shall not be atoned for with sacrifice nor offering forever. Samuel lay until the morning, and he opened the doors of the house of the Lord. Now Samuel feared to report this vision to Eli. Then Eli called Samuel and said, Samuel, my son. And he answered, Here I am. He said, What is it? What is the thing that the Lord has spoken to you? Do not hide it from me, lest my God do so to you. And more also, if you hide from me a word out of all the things that he spoke to you. Samuel told him everything and did not hide from him a thing. And he said, It is the Lord. Let him do what is good in his eyes. And Samuel grew, and the Lord was with him, and did not let any of his words fall to the ground. All Israel from Dan even to Beersheba knew that Samuel was proven to be a prophet of the Lord. And the Lord appeared again in Shiloh, for the Lord revealed himself to Samuel in Shiloh by the word of the Lord.
Okay, so there's like 5 questions based off of that passage. So the first question is, what was true about visions back in those days? I said they were usually God coming to someone in a dream to prophesy something, or God
Hmm.
coming to someone to like actually physically talk to them, like not physically talk to them, but talk to them,
Or to give them a warning.
or to give them a warning. Yes. Um, how does God choose to bring revelation to the nations based off of that passage? I said through messengers, prophets, apostles. Um, you can go ahead.
Oh no, I was just clearing my throat. I had an
Oh,
itch.
oh, okay.
I would say that he would get the message out one way or the other. Like you said, through prophets, through messengers, etc. He can use certain people he chooses to do his bidding, um, and even through visions. They can God can give them visions and show them like what's what, but they don't understand it. Then he'll put someone in their life to like, hey, I understand you have this. This is what the Lord was trying to say to you, this and that.
Mhm.
As we saw in First Samuel 1 through 21, literally the whole chapter of chapter 3.
Yeah. And when I was honestly when I was reading that passage, at first I was confused. I was like, why are they having me read through this passage? And then I started reading. I was like, oh, this is the story. I remember my dad doing what he called devotions with us every
Mhm.
single night, and I was like, oh, I remember this. So that was a cute little memory moment for me. Anyways,
I feel like
why do
God
you?
could use,
Huh?
sorry, I was gonna say God could use anyone as his messenger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um. Why do you think hearing God's voice was confusing to Samuel at first? Obviously, the passage says he had never heard God's voice before. He thought it was Eli. Um, so does anybody remember what Habakkuk 5 said? Verse 5.
Chapter 1, verse 5.
Yeah,
I have to go back to that actually because I
yeah.
do not.
I couldn't tell you either. I can tell you an idea, but I couldn't tell you exactly what it says.
Habakkuk
Um,
chapter 1, verse. Chapter 1, right?
yes.
Verse 5. Okay. Behold, among the heathen, and regard and wonder and marvel, for I will work a work in your days. You will not believe it, though it be told to you.
So, how does that kind of sound similar to the First Samuel 3:1 through 21? Is there like a specific verse that sticks out to y'all that kind of sounds familiar to that?
I think it. Sorry,
No, you go ahead, Jen. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I think it's the you will not believe it because look at Samuel when God was trying to speak to him. He believed it was. If he didn't believe it could be anyone else but um. Oh, what's his name?
Eli?
Eli.
Yeah.
I was actually
So
going to say the
even
same thing only because when I look at that, it goes back to a work of wonder. And in this case, with Samuel, he worked a wonder because, like Jen, I'm sorry, you, Mar, what you said in the whole chapter of First Samuel 3, he never heard the voice of the Lord because no one didn't tell him what he sounded like. How can anyone know what he sounds like unless you come to him?
Yeah.
And
right.
then more of the works and the wonders begin to happen throughout the years, as long as I guess you're doing his will or his bidding per se.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Uh, the verse, like, 'cause specifically for me, just so that we don't have any having to go read back through the passage unless you want to. Um, the verse that sounds a lot like Habakkuk 1 through 5 to me, or sorry, chapter 1, verse 5. What the verse in that passage that sounds familiar to me is verse 11. And in my translation in the KJV, it says, "And the Lord said to Samuel, Behold, I will do a thing in Israel, at which both the ears of everyone that heareth it shall tingle." That kind of sounds like I will work a work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see the similarities. I just look back at both of them. It's basically similar.
Yeah, so that's the one I said, but everybody has their own opinion. Um, so what does verse 19 of chap 1 Samuel chapter 3 say that Samuel did with the words that God gave him? And what do you think that meant?
Well, looking back at this, First Samuel 3:19, and Samuel grew, and the Lord was words. Let me see. Let me make sure I read this right. And Samuel grew, and the Lord was with him, and did not let any of his words fall to the ground. So basically, when I read this, is saying he kept on growing in the Lord. He didn't just grow up, he grew further into the Lord, knowing him more and doing his bidding, doing his will, and he didn't um like lose one speck of his word. In other words, he made sure he was straight to a T,
Mm-hmm.
basically.
Yeah. So let's fast forward a few years to when Samuel is a grown man. Saul is the first king of Israel and suffering from a bad case of jealousy for his soon to be successor, David. He's so blinded by it that he tries to kill the shepherd boy. It's right after one of these attempts that we pick up the story. So in 1 Samuel 19:18 through 24, that's the next passage.
Which passage is that?
Uh, 1 Samuel 19:18 through 24.
19, 18 through 24.
Yeah.
Okay, over here. You want to do that one?
Do you want to?
I can.
Okay.
18 through 24. Okay. Now David fled and he escaped and came to Samuel at Ramah, and he reported to him all that Saul had done to him, and he and Samuel went and stayed in Naioth, if I'm saying it correctly. It was told Saul, saying, David is at nation in Ramah. Then Saul sent messengers to take David. But when they saw the company of the prophets prophesying and Samuel taking his stand over them, the Spirit of God came upon the messengers of Saul, and they also prophesied. When it was reported to Saul, he sent other messengers and also and they also prophesied. So Saul sent messengers again a third time. They too prophesied. Then he also went to Ramah and came to the great well that is in Seku. And he asked and said, Where are Samuel and David? And one said, They are at Naioth and Ramah. He went there to Naioth and Ramah, and the Spirit of God came upon him also. And he went on and he prophesied until he came to Naioth and Ramah. He stripped off his clothes, and he also prophesied before Samuel. And he lay down naked all that day and all that night. Therefore, they say, Is Saul also among the prophets?
So then the question with that is Samuel still the only one hearing God's voice? I said no, based off of that passage.
I think
I'm
David could have.
sorry, but did they just
Oh,
say he sat there or he stood there naked,
yep,
Yeah.
like bare butt naked?
yep.
Yeah. Well,
Okay, okay then.
I think that's just because he was so upset that um he was basically being chased because he was, you know, wanted wanted to be like killed because he was going to be the next successor, but and I think he was also maybe questioning God also at that point.
So if he was being chased, he figures they're not gonna want to grab a naked man.
Well, we shall never
I'm
know.
sorry, I'm just a little dumbfounded about that because I've seen some people that are on things do that,
Same.
Well, they
and
probably.
I'm just a little dumbfounded by that. Just some of those stories get me a little dumbfounded.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not trying to make a joke about it, but they probably wouldn't want to deal with that because think about it. I would not want to see a man's ding a ring either. I don't want to see no one's freaking.
Well, not
In-
just well, not well, not just that. But not just that. Just back in that day, modesty was a big thing among both men and women. And last I checked, running around in your birthday suit is the least modest you could possibly be. So going on that,
Oh my
can you
gosh.
imagine?
I'm not even
And
gonna
I'm not
lie.
trying to get off topic here,
No, that passage also had me a little confused. But I was just kind of like, all right.
but okay. Not, and I'm really not trying to get off topic here. This was partially on topic. But could you imagine what the people were thinking that someone trying to prophesy suddenly just gets naked and then lays down?
And slept that way.
Yes, in his
You,
birthday suit.
that's a fairly good point, but still, I did
No
not expect
wonder
that.
the Romans thought we were nuts.
I did not expect that.
I didn't expect to choke on my burrito when I heard naked. And that's why I'm like, excuse me, did I hear that right?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I can't.
I'm sorry, you think in
Oh.
today's day and age, with how skimpy people dress,
Okay, move it on, please. God, can we move on now, please?
Yes. Okay. Anyways, going on to what Dana Grush said about that. Some Bible scholars believe that this passage refers to a school of prophecy that was birthed during the years of Samuel's ministry. Habakkuk may have attended this very school. Way back when the first king of Israel was messing things up, God began to solve the problem Habakkuk would see during his lifetime by establishing a way to train prophets to recognize his voice. God does not just work to solve the problems of the whole world, but to solve them for all of time. He cares about the history of his world. He used the baby Hannah begged for to break a revelation drought in Israel, and then used that boy to train others to listen for and hear God's voice. Hundreds of years later, Habakkuk was one of many who was still recognizing Hazon. I still have not figured out the entire definition of that word. Anyways, and it all began with one woman's trouble. Hannah was a woman whose heart had a personal burden. God saw her. He saw her desires. What did she want? She wanted a baby. Um okay. 1 Samuel 1:11. What vow does Hannah present to God, and how is that significant in the light of the fact that she'd probably been begging God to have a baby for a long time? So, let's see. I could just use, the laptop now to research stuff, but I like having the physical Bible. Uh, oh, my non-existent dyslexia. First Samuel chapter 1 verse 11 says, "And she vowed a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if thou wilt indeed look on the affliction of thine handmaid, and remember me, and not forget thine handmaid, but wilt give unto thine handmaid a man child, then I will give him unto the Lord all the days of his life, and there shall no razor come upon his head." So basically, she was saying she would give the child to God. So there's a lot of verses upcoming, like in the next 2 seconds. I'm not going to have you read them, Brandon, because there's a lot of verses like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I will just tell you how they're all similar. So,
Before you do, I wanted to point out the way Hannah promises to give her child to God makes me think of the way a lot of denominations baptize their babies, and some do christen them or whatever in the promise of raising the children under God's um, rule.
yeah.
I mean, it could be, but still, like baptizing them. I mean, they're too young to even understand. I mean, here's
Well,
the other thing
no.
also, like with Samuel's mother, like they before she even brought him to the temple, she had to wait until he was weaned. At least I think about like 5 years old, 6 years old, something like that.
Well, the thing is, Brandon, some places, some people who baptize their children isn't like a real baptism. It's a promise to raise the child in the church.
That's almost like people taking their babies to uh give them to the Lord. So I'm pretty sure my parents
Hmm.
did that with me and my brothers. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
Not
that's
like
yeah.
baptized,
That's
but like, you know.
Like anointed with holy water, basically.
not entirely. Some like my church, they stand up before everyone, introduce the infant, and then make the vow to raise the child on upon the the way the Lord wishes, us to live
There's a word for it, but
and
I
to
can't
raise
think
our
of
kids.
what it is.
Yeah, I can't think of it either. And then we have a potluck. If
Yeah.
there's a potluck, there's baptism. I'm sorry, but that's just kind of how it is.
Because like I say, like, and like I said, I don't agree with Catholics. I really don't. Like when they're baptizing their kids or whatever. Like how? Why would you baptize a kid? Because this baby knows no sin yet. How could they do anything? Now, when I look at Samuel, if they're devoted to the Lord, like you're doing a tap on their head or something like that, how would they do that? That could probably be one thing, but I don't know. I mean, I have to look that up a little bit more
Uh,
before I say
that
what's what.
that also depends on the um, Catholic churches. Each church, kind of like the Christian church. Well,
Mm,
I mean, I can't say Christian, but how there's every different form of denomination. Even under each denomination has a million different churches.
yeah.
Catholics do the same thing, and a lot of them, the quote unquote baptism for the baby is also that promise to raise the child in a holy way until they're old enough to decide to be baptized themselves.
Anyways, whatever you got, Mar, bring it on.
Um. So this next part, like I said, I think there's like 8 verses. I'm not gonna have you read them all, but you can um write them down if you're interested.
I'll just say follow along, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the Old Testament, God spoke to his people through prophets. He also spoke to them through dreams, signs, and wonders, whispers, and many other ways. At one point, he even used a stubborn donkey. So all the verses that I'm about to list off: John 27, Mark 13:11, Matthew 10:20, Luke 12:12, John 14:26, 11 or Luke 11:28, and John 8:31 through 32, and in the same chapter 37 through 38. Uh, each one of them teaches us about hearing God's voice. So in John 27, I wrote down that God's followers know him and they follow him. Matthew 10:20, the Holy Ghost speaks through us. And same thing in Mark 13:11. It's not us that speaks or teaches, but it's God coming through us, or the Holy Spirit, or Jesus, or whatever you want to call it. Luke 12:12. Again, he'll teach us what to say. John 14:26. He teaches us all things, like everything. Luke 11:28. If says that, if we memorize the Bible, we will be blessed. Not just like blessed, like as in he'll give us things, but we will live a blessed life, pretty much. John 8:31 through 32. Um, if you continue in the word, we are technically his disciples, and the truth will pretty much set us free. I'm pretty sure that's where the truth will set us free. I'm pretty sure that's where that originated from, is that verse. John 8:37 through 38. Um, that people don't have the truth The people that don't have the truth, in my translation, says, quote unquote, seek to kill us. It's not that they seek to kill us, it's just that we don't really get along with them as well as we do other Christians. That's how I took that. So I believe that God still speaks to us today, and I believe that He wants to speak to me. I believe that He wants to speak to you. Um, in today's day and age, we hear Him through the Bible, different circumstances, and other, as my dad would say, um, godly counsel. Uh, so here's another stopping moment question. Um, what are some characteristics of God's voice that you've experienced? I said, when I heard God's voice, it was very powerful and like it was, you knew that it was God for me, anyways. It gave me chills, but also at the same time, it was very peaceful. And I had another experience like that the other night, actually last night, when I was walking around the house all angry and everything else about my phone situation and trying to get my social media passwords off of my phone that was constantly turning itself on and turning itself off. Um, and just nothing was going right. I texted Brandon and I actually told him, I was like, God's telling me to paint right now, and I really don't want to. I don't know how it's going to go, but I'm going to. So I sat for like an hour and a half and I painted, and it was like this setting, kind of like a sunset, sunrise kind of setting of like the crosses, and I also painted like people bowing down to the crosses. And then when I tried to get it off of the surface that I was painting it on, it got stuck to the surface that I was painting it on, which made me even more mad. So I ended up just tearing it up. But I didn't hear God's voice anymore saying, "Hey, you need to paint something. I'm telling you to paint. I don't care what you want to do, paint." So that was my next experience was last night. God was just telling me, "You need to paint. I am telling you. I don't want to hear you arguing, pretty much. No, you do not need to change. Just paint."
When you're explaining that, because you didn't even tell me that part, can I say something on that one?
Good.
When you're saying the sun set thing or whatever, that goes back to one verse saying, "Now let the sun go down your anger." It says to be angry and sin not, so that's number one. And the three crosses part, everyone's bound down the cross. That's like saying to me, like, hey, he's right there with you. He'll help you get through whatever you're going through, about your anger, sadness, whatever. He's right there. I think that's what was being done right there
Hmm.
when I hear that.
I also really loved that. It did make me chuckle a little bit. The God's telling me to paint, but I really don't want to. But I guess I have to. It's like when your mom tells you go clean your bedroom, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
And it kind of puts that perspective of us really being His children, even if some of us are overgrown children, we're still children nonetheless.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure what your viewpoint would be on that, Mara, but to me, that's what it sounds like when I hear that. Because I get to see the
Hmm.
picture in my mind right now.
It's possible. I didn't think about that until just now. Like that.
Right? I know the times God has spoken to me, it's been more of that still small voice. It wasn't like loud and like your experience. It was quiet and gentle and soft. And sometimes as quiet as it being a gut feeling.
Yeah.
And then I've had times where I swear he messed with my car so I would leave a little later than I planned on it. I'm not joking. Now this was a little while ago, but I was trying to leave for work and the car wouldn't start. And I'm like, what the hell? Your plugs are good. Your wires are good. You have got fuel. I can hear the uh, fuel pump kicking on. Everything's doing what it's supposed to do. The ignition, the starter's wanting to start. It won't fire over. 2, 3 minutes later, after sitting there and pouting and having the feeling I need to just sit for a few more minutes longer, I sat. And then when I got to feel a feeling again, so I tried it again, and it fired right up, no problem at all. Not, as if it had never tried, could not start on me. Turns out there was a 4-car pileup on my route to work.
Ah.
Someone hit black ice, which caused me to take another route to work. I swear that was him, but I wish he wouldn't touch my car. Nobody touches my car. But no, that's one of those instances I feel like if he hadn't, because looking at the time of the crash, I would have been right there in the intersection.
Yeah.
But still, don't mess with my car, please. Don't mess with anything else. Just make this my baby.
Brandon, do you have anything else to add?
Not right now. Just figured I'd tell you that one when you were describing what you painted.
Okay. So, something that I had underlined: be patient with yourself. It can take some time to begin to recognize what his voice feels like and how it sounds. Your discernment will grow as you spend more time with him. Uh, so we're on number 2 of the 6 habits of living by faith, which is remember to look and see where God is at work. Maybe like Samuel in Israel or Habakkuk in Judah, you've had a drought of hearing God's voice. Have you ever considered that the burden you are currently facing could be used by God in the big picture plan He has for this world? Maybe He's been wow, this is crazy. Maybe He's been prompting you through the still small voice, through prayer, circumstances, or other people. Maybe you've been hearing His voice but didn't recognize it. How might He have His eye on a bigger picture as He works in your life? Now, I said that's crazy because Jen literally just said that still small voice.
Look at how it pieces together.
I know.
See, he does love us. But you tell her it's Brandon. I'm teasing Brandon.
Let's keep it orderly here.
Brandon, do you have anything to say to that?
No comment right now.
Jen?
It is orderly, Brandon. And what was the question again?
Uh, how might he have his eye on a bigger picture as he works in your life?
Oh, that I'm still trying to figure out what bigger picture he's preparing me for because with so much that has gone through my life and then ending up with you ragtag bunch and learning how to be okay with being myself. Part of me thinks he's preparing for when I have a family of my own, maybe, but I'm not entirely sure what that plan is. He hasn't quite told me yet, even though I don't like surprises.
Right. I I didn't write anything down only because I know that I've known that we were gonna have these conversations, and whenever the end questions for those quote unquote chapters, I know that anytime I discuss this specific Bible study, whether it be with you guys or my mom and Miss Faith, um, there's gonna be always something different. So right now, I don't know either because where Clayton lost his job, like I don't know. I mean, he had an interview today. He's got a potential part-time job for like the weekends and stuff, but at the same time, like I don't know. I feel like he has his hand and his eye on things because I have a way of like paying rent. But before I mentioned that that way about him losing his job, I didn't know. I had no clue. So, uh, and then there's, always the normal situations in life, day to day life problems, and then there's always something. My
He
best
could be.
friend said it the best way yesterday. Well, at least you're going through a midlife crisis now versus later in life. I'm like, when am I not going through a midlife crisis? There's always something wrong.
True. But maybe he's preparing you for that restaurant thing.
Yeah, maybe. Still no comment, Brandon?
Nope.
Okay. So I'll go ahead into the next. I don't know if I'm personally going to make it all the way to five. I might. But sometimes there's a message in the silence. Children have certainly said some funny things when they misunderstand the Bible. There's three quotations here, and I thought they were quite funny. Lot's wife was a pillar of salt by day, but a ball of fire by night.
What?
This was something, quotations said by children.
I love that one.
The first commandment was when Eve told Adam to eat the apple. When you get scared, God will bring you a quilt. He said the comforter would come. I just thought
I
it was funny.
am so proud of these children.
I wonder if God ever laughs at the way adults misinterpret the Bible. Have you ever noticed how often promises from Scripture are taken out of context? For example, some people say, I can do all things through Christ when they need a pep talk to meet a deadline, pay their bills, or pass a test. But Paul wasn't doing much when he penned that verse. He was in prison, and the point of what he wrote was content, contentment, not attainment. When we isolate one Bible verse from those that surround it, we often miss the true message God is sending us. The verse from Habakkuk that we will study today is often a misused promise of God. Look among the nations and see, wonder and be astounded, for I am doing a work in your days that you would not believe if told, which is Habakkuk 1:5. Let's see. Brandon,
Yes.
it's chapter 2, 23 through 25.
Okay. Exodus. Chapter what?
Chapter 2, verse
2,
23 through 25.
23 through 25. Okay. Okay. 23 to 25. Okay. In the passing of time, the king of Egypt died, and the children of Israel sighed because of the bondage, and they cried out, and their cry came up to God on account of the bondage. God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God looked on the children of Israel, and God had concern for them.
So, who was crying out to God based on those verses?
They were crying out to the people who were in bondage were crying out to God, those who are in bondage.
You just answered two questions in one. What nation were they crying out from?
Egypt.
And what was God doing about that?
He was basically looking down on them, and he was remembering the promise he made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
hmm So I didn't have to
And he
ask.
To
had
which he,
and he had concern for them too.
Yeah, I said
to
he
which
made
he
his
sent,
promise and respected it.
hmm
And that's right
to which
around
he,
Moses gave the picture.
to which he ends up sending Moses.
hmm So it's based off of the people in Egypt. For them and for us today too, it's hard to worship and obey somebody that you don't remember until you are in hard times and be like, "Oh yeah, I have a God." But other than that, it's hard to worship and obey somebody that you can't remember because like let's be honest, most of us in our like day-to-day lives, we don't really remember, "Hey, God exists," unless you're extremely close to him and or there's something wrong. That's how I feel anyways. So we're going into the Egyptian plagues now. So when God shows up to deliver his people from Egyptian slavery, Pharaoh is reluctant to release his pyramid building workforce. The Bible records that God sent 10 plagues to move their conversation along. So, um, here's a lot of verses again. So let's just say Exodus 7 3 through 5. Um, so this is what I thought was crazy. So, let's see. I'll do it.
Okay.
As my Bible already turned to Exodus. Exodus 7 3 through 5. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart and multiply my signs and my wonders in the land of Egypt. But Pharaoh shall not hearken unto you, that I may lay my hand upon Egypt and bring forth mine armies and my people, the children of Israel, out of the land of Egypt by great judgments. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord when I stretch forth my hand upon Egypt and bring out the children of Israel from among them. What's crazy is the next three passages is every single one of them at some point say, I am the Lord. Like, I am the Lord of the earth. In Exodus 8:22 through 23. Exodus 10:1 through 2 says, I am the Lord. Exodus 12 through 12 or 12 verse 12 at some point says, I am the Lord. Like, I just thought that was insane. So like in random parts of my Bible in Exodus, I just have I am the Lord underlined. Like, because he says it so many times. It's insane. Anyways, um, Brandon, I did not read this entire passage because it was a lot. I'm not asking you to either. What I did was I Googled the 10 plagues, and then there's a list of different gods that are idols that the Egyptians worshipped, and it also corresponds with, because I'm getting far ahead of myself. So there's a list of the Egyptian gods, and each and every single one of them correlates with the plagues, the 10 plagues that God put on Egypt at that time. So the list that I was looking at, she made us go through the list and match up each and every one of the Egyptian gods to the 10 plagues. Now, when I Googled, I also found out that um, all of those gods, God put those plagues on Egypt to match up with each and every single Egyptian god, which I thought was cool. So I can actually, if you want me to, I can take a picture of this real quick and then send it to the group chat so that y'all can see too if you want.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, because I didn't think about that until just now. Hold, please.
Okay.
Talk amongst yourselves.
I'm not getting bored or anything, I promise, but I'm starting to get droopy eyed, so.
Well, wake up.
Well, I didn't have my coffee today, so it's gonna happen. Plus, after being up for 30 plus hours yesterday, yeah, that was gonna happen.
Oh, you poor baby.
No, because someone was trying to break in the other day. Someone was trying to break in, and I'm like, what the hell?
That's when you get a unicorn horn.
And I go like, well, how come you didn't say anything? Because you guys were asleep, and you guys were gonna sit here and say that it was on my head when it was not. Oh, there we go. I guess she sent it. I guess.
Didn't come through on my end yet.
Oh,
Unless it was the other group.
it must have been someone else because I didn't get nothing. I thought she sent it. I'm like, oop, we got it now. I'm like, oh wait a minute, no, we don't.
No, not even. I hate Mondays. I'm so slow today.
Okay. If I send it to you, is there a way that you could post it up in here?
If I was on my computer,
Oh.
let me see. Can I do anything here? Let's see. Well, I can turn my camera on. But I'll do it from my other phone though, so I can show it.
Wait, I just.
That could be a way I can do it. Because when I'm doing everything on mobile, I don't know how to do that unless I was on my computer. Then I can do something.
Because I'm not gonna try to. I'm not gonna try to pronounce all this stuff.
No, I know.
No, let's see. Hopefully, maybe I can send it to you. Yes. Sorry, again, working through the technical difficulties.
You're fine.
Open.
Open sesame. Oh wait, we got someone else coming in. Hang on.
Okay.
Wait, Jen?
It kicked me down. I don't know how. It just crashed.
Okay. I sent it to you.
All right, let me see here.
Sending. Sent.
Okay, I got it. Let me see if I can blow this up. All right, let me see if I can turn my camera on. I ain't gonna show my shirtless self for now. Today was a little bit warm. Today it was like 80 something degrees. Let's see, how do I do a flip?
Well, good, because none of us want to see it.
Jen,
Brandon.
trying to keep it in order here. I'm not trying to be funny right now. How the hell do I do this?
I'm sorry. I know you were probably relaxing just listening.
No, you're fine.
So if it doesn't work out, I can always try to pronounce.
Well, I could probably pronounce it for you if you want me to, because I can say it. It's not that well. Let's see. What section am I supposed to look at, though?
Hmm?
The section you have on your paper.
Oh, that is the Egyptian gods that they were worshiping. So
Lucas.
while you're trying to figure that out, the 10 plagues were number one, the water to blood, the frogs, the lice and the flies, disease in the livestock, boils, hail, locusts, darkness, plague of every firstborn, and then eventually death of every firstborn.
Ra Nephitis, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Bias. Hoyt. Isis. Samek. Serpius. Amhot, Yochit, Serpa, Bata, Emniths, Hathor, Ammon, Seth, Hathor, Pharaoh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12. Oh boy.
And then
I
even more because of the multiple gods for certain things.
wow.
So,
I can see why they put Pharaoh on there because Pharaoh trying to pronounce himself as being God too. I can see why that's there.
yeah. So, there was the god of the sun, the river goddess, god of the god of dwarves, protector of households, mother and children, and he also had the power to scare off evil spirits. Goddess of fertility, water, and renewal, had the head of a frog. Goddess of magic and medicine, who was the wife of Ra. God of healing, god of the flies, god of the locusts, god associated with bulls and cows, god of storms and disorder, goddess of love and protection, who had the head of a cow. And then Pharaoh was considered the ultimate power over Egypt. Many of the gods were eventually named after him. Each of the plagues confronted and overpowered things that the Egyptians considered powerful and therefore worshipped. In Joshua 24:14, it tells us that basically God was, or the people were serving other gods. And the plagues were to reveal God to Egypt and the surrounding nations and his people. They were not just meant for the deliverance of Israel, they also jogged the memory of the people that had forgotten the one true God. Um, so Dana keeps mentioning spiritual amnesia, basically meaning that we keep forgetting about God. So spiritual amnesia does not only make us forget who God is, but we forget what He's rescued us from. Unless we remain vigilant, old enslavements will become new alliances. Old enslavements meaning our old sins, our past selves, etc., etc. So, what does this have to do with like me and you? Like, by examining God's responses to His people throughout history, we can determine His character and how He might be viewing us today. But is there also like a message in the silence that, in the silence that we are hearing, like the silence that we're hearing, um, is there a message in the silence that any of y'all are experiencing? Because like for me, I feel like my faith and my patience is just being tested. Other than last night when he was telling me to paint when I didn't want to, but like for good amount of time, any time, parentheses s parentheses, I don't ever
Hmm.
really hear God's voice unless I'm doing something I shouldn't be, or just I don't know, unless I'm so desperate, I guess. So for right now, for most of the time, I feel like my faith and my patience is just being tested.
I can agree with that. I feel like my faith, my patience, and the ability to just slow down is being tested, enforced, whatever wording you want to use.
Yeah,
I
Brandon.
feel like,
Or sorry, go ahead, Jen.
I was gonna say, some days I feel like uh, I just can't slow down, and I'm sure he's gotten a little frustrated with that, but yet his patience is a lot better than mine. And on the days I can't slow down, he makes me slow down.
You know what that reminds me of?
What?
The last time I talked to my mom and Miss Faith, um,
Hmm.
my mom mentioned how my dad, and I remember my dad doing this a lot of the time too. Um, my mom would just be going, going, going all day. Come home and be going and going and going because she was, a nurse at a pretty popular hospital, University of
Hmm.
Buffalo. She worked in the ER, so the entire time that she was work, she was just going and going and going. She'd come home, and me and my brothers, being little at the time, mommy, 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 after she showered, and she would just keep going, going, and going. And I remember my dad looking at her a lot when I was little and being like, "Just stop, sit down, stop." So that kind of reminds me of that because also she mentioned that in the last time I studied with her and Miss Faith, and she said that a lot of the time God tells her to just stop and be still.
I
So,
hear the big girl one a lot, and I'm like, I don't want. And then be still pops up on my phone, or it pops up on something else, or slow down pops on something. I'm like, I don't want. And then something happens, and I have to.
yeah.
Mm. But like, no, legit. If you don't listen to him, he will make you listen.
Brandon, anything to say?
There are a few times I can hear his voice, but sometimes I feel like it doesn't happen unless it's like something very dire. Like when it came to my mom, and I know I bring up my mom a lot, but when it came to my mom, I feel like I couldn't do anything without her only because I was never a good student. I don't even think I was a good son either because of the crap I did. But few times when he would say certain stuff, it just brings back the memories of what mom taught me growing up. And and this is kind of weird too. I don't want to relate it to movies or anything, but I watched a little bit of The Lion King. And does anyone remember that part where Mufasa talks to him the first time ever since he was been gone?
Yeah.
It felt like I had that with my mom for a little bit. And this was all last night. And the whole entire time I said I would never forget my mom. But in a sense I did, because I forgot who I am. In turn I forgot about her. And I kept thinking about that and I'm like, whoa. Of course, being a big ninny that I probably am, I did cry about it because I haven't heard my mom's voice for a long time. Hearing her talk for the first time in 3 years meant a lot to me.
Do you think maybe um this is maybe I might be wrong, but maybe God presents himself to you through your mom?
I'm not saying it's not possible, but I really don't know. All I know is that when I had that last night, that's the second time it happened in a sense, but I almost forgot what my mom sounded like until last night. And when I heard that, that hit me pretty good.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's pretty possible. I read somewhere God will quote unquote manifest himself to you in a way that gets your attention, whether it be the voice of a relative, the voice of the loved one, or even his own voice, or sometimes your own voice. He will get your attention one way or another. I mean, heck, he talked to Moses in a burning bush.
Yeah. That's true.
I still would have loved to see that. That would have been cool.
I think that too.
And again, people who are watch this, you want to call me a wussy, whatever, say what you will, but I'm staying true to what I said.
Well, the next part kind of hit me hard because I didn't really ever hear God until right before right when I was like fighting with myself to go to church. Until we make our hearts right before God, we will be unable to hear His voice clearly. Sometimes that in and of itself is the message in the silence. So the
Man.
next question is, do you think God sees any evidence in your life that you've forgotten who He is? That you've been seduced by the gods of this world, like materialism, power, sex, or worldly beauty, or those old enslavements to sin sneaking in on you? That's the end of the next question. And like I said, I leave all these things blank because I know that I'll talk to y'all about it. I'll talk to Mom and Faith. So I just leave these things blank for discussion purposes.
I hmm. I had a few instances where sometimes I would lose control of myself in a sense. I'm not gonna get into that 'cause it's kind of personal, but
That's fine. For me, like I've said before, and tonight and the last one too, like that I've forgotten who he is. When I wake up, I'm just like, I'm too tired to think, anyways, except for my good mornings to everybody.
mhm.
I go to work, I get to work, I do work. I'm not really necessarily thinking about God while I'm at work because I'm too busy to think about anything else. And then I come home. So, me in my day to day life, I'm not sitting here being like, oh, hello. Or I'm not, occasionally I might be like, oh, that was God that this happened. But most of the time, I just go through my day to day life and I don't really think about God because most of the time I am too busy. But then again, there's pastors out there that are like, if you're too busy to God, you need to do this, this, and this about it. But at the same time, I work in food service, fast food. There is no time to think about anything except for work. Half the time, I'm too busy to even go to the bathroom. So that's just me, though. But
Well, I'm sure God would understand that. I mean, sometimes those pastors talk off their rear end without knowing what they're talking about.
yeah,
I don't mean that like to be funny, so,
no,
but
I
like,
know.
I know some who just talk out their rear end, and I know some who genuinely try to give advice and sometimes forget, hey, not everybody has a slow job that they can slow down. They have their job and then their kids and their spouse and this and that. And sometimes the only time they can make time for them is for God is before bed or something or whatever, or even the drive to work. But I know God enjoys what time he can get with his kids.
Yeah,
Would he wish it was more? Yeah, but I'm sure he's also just happy that we make the effort.
right. I can agree with that.
Hence the term "it's the thought that counts."
Yeah,
Weirdly enough, I know some people who pray while they're in the shower, as weird as that is, but that's just them. Well, I don't say as weird as that is, as weird as that sounds. It just sounds
yeah.
weirder than it would be.
Uh, okay. So Dana says, here's the good news. Habakkuk chapter 1 verse 5 was written to God's people when they needed him because they'd acted like, to best translate, heathens. Your sin does not negate God's work in your life. Rather, it is one of the reasons that his love compels him to be at work on your behalf. Will there be consequences? Possibly. But he does intend But does he intend to rescue you? Absolutely. Brandon,
Yes.
Hebrews 12:6.
Hebrews 12:6 coming up.
And the question after that is, what does it tell you about how God feels when he has to discipline us?
12. Okay, Hebrews 12:6 says, "For whom the Lord loves, he disciplines and scourges, if I'm saying it correctly, every son whom he receives."
So, what does that verse tell us about how God feels when he has to discipline us?
Basically, we're basically going to get a spanking, literally, if we do some our own way, I guess.
I would say the same way you would feel if you had to discipline your child. You don't want to, but you know you need to so they grow into the person you know they can be.
I said he just feels upset
Hmm.
because, I mean, it's. Let me start this. So, when I was growing up and I got spankings, and I got spankings a lot, a lot. Um, I remembered it made me so mad and confused every single time I got a spanking because my mom or my dad would turn around and they would hug me. And I would just be like, "Why are you hugging me after you just spanked my butt? Like, why?" And normally if if they did that, they would tell me something. I don't remember. It was something along the lines of like, "I didn't want to have to do that, but because of your actions, blah blah blah, ABC, XYZ, whatever they say." Um,
Right.
and then I would just go to my room and I'd sit there and cry, hold my butt, and just be like, "Why would they?" And even as a teenager, I'd be like, "I don't understand why my parents did that. Like, I don't understand it." But I also wasn't. I didn't have a relationship with God, and I had never gotten into the Bible like this before. So even as a teenager, I'd be like, "Yeah, my parents used to spank me, and then they used to hug me afterwards. I don't know why they did that, but like now I understand because like God's upset when he has to discipline us, and then usually a period of time goes by, and then something good comes along, and it's like, oh, that's why this happened. Like, so he's upset when he has to discipline us, but at the same time, usually somewhere along the lines, down the grapevine, we understand. So God sees you, God sees me. Difficult times doesn't mean that he doesn't love us and that he doesn't have compassion. Dana says, God may be looking upon you and your circumstances with one hope, that you that we would be like Josiah and remember our faith and resurrender our hearts and our lives to him so that he can get to the business of our rescue. Which makes sense. God's apparent silence is not always evidence that there is sin in your life. Sometimes it's just evidence of the world we live in. But it's always smart to examine our hearts to see if there's anything between us and him. So for me, I personally would just like confess anything that God brings to my mind. And there is a lot. But I don't know how y'all feel about that.
I mean, I agree.
Same.
So after this one, we only have one more chapter to go. think. Wait, did I? Oh, yeah, I did finish it. Okay. So, God sees things differently. God's answers to my prayers are often different from the ones that I expect. Like, normally, he usually is like, most of the time, most of my life, I've gotten a no because my heart wasn't, I don't want to say clean, but my heart wasn't ready. Um, Also, most of the time, it's a maybe. And occasionally, he says yes. But, so now we're going to go into Habakkuk chapter 1, verses 6 through 8. It's felt like it took forever to move on to that. But, Brandon,
Habakkuk coming right up.
you okay?
Yeah, I'm just getting a little bit droopy eyed because I had enough sleep, but it's doing its thing again. Habakkuk what?
1, chapter 1,
Mm-hmm.
verses 6 through 8.
6 through 8. All right. Whee. All right. Excuse me. For
Wake
I'm
up.
raising. Hmm?
Wake up.
Thank you, Dork Nugget. For I am raising up the children's, that bitter and hasty nation, which marches through the breadth of the earth, to possess dwelling places that are not theirs. They are terrible and dreadful. Their justice and their dignity proceed from themselves. Their horses are swifter than leopards, more fierce than evening wolves. Their horsemen charge on their horsemen come from afar. They fly like the eagle that hastens to eat.
Um, does your, what translation are you reading from?
MEV. What was it again? Habakkuk chapter 1,
Yeah, no, you read the right verses. I just wanted to see, does your translation say CHALDEANS
not that I see. Let me try going to the other one.
in chapter 6 or verse 6?
Verse 6. Not that I see.
It said, "For lo, I raise up the."
Oh, Chaldeans.
Yeah,
Oh,
there
I
you go.
read that wrong. Sorry. I thought it
I
said
was
children.
like, wait a
I don't know
minute.
why. I don't know why my eyes got buggy there for a second.
Yeah, no. And something before I start off the questions for discussion, I thought it was insane that they said that their horses are swifter than leopards. How fast would them horses have to be faster than leopards? I thought that was crazy. And then also that are more fierce than the evening wolves. So how, I don't want to say not domesticated because like if they had horses then therefore they were trained in some way, but like how mean would them horses have had to have been? I thought that was crazy. I was like, horses faster than leopards? I want to ride one. It was
Sure. Next thing you know, you're.
what?
I was gonna say sure. Next thing you know, you end up like Pecos Bill. You fly off the damn thing.
Dude, those horses had to have been so fast.
I want one of them horses,
See?
and I want them speedy.
See? See,
I'm
Brandon?
not joking. I would name it Speedy.
I would name mine Speedy Gonzales.
Well, that's where I got it from, Speedy Gonzales, but I just shortened it to Speedy.
I would have called mine Gonzo.
Ooh, better. Pete and repeat.
What, Brandon?
I was like, what? You name it Gonzo? Last time I checked, he doesn't have a curl. Gonzo has a curled nose. A horse
Yes,
doesn't.
but she's gonna name hers Speedy. I'm gonna name mine Gonzo. That way you have Speedy Gonzales.
Okay, since you're gonna play that game, mine. Mm, because the horse from the movie Ghost Rider, I'll just name that one Ghost Rider, basically.
Or Since she already named hers after Speedy Gonzalez, I could name mine Turbo. Male. Anyways, so who were they in that chapter? Obviously, obviously, no, the verse. Obviously, they were the Chaldeans, and God uses the word in my translation, bitter and hasty. Brandon, I don't remember what you said yours. What words God used to describe the Chaldeans in your translation? Brandon,
Oh, I didn't realize I was still on mute. Sorry. I
I
said
was like, wake up.
for the MEV, it says right here, same thing like yours. For I'm raising up the kept saying children again, Chaldeans, that bitter and hasty nation. So it used the same thing.
Okay. So, oh yeah, I remember. And in your translation, it also says, how far would their power extend to the breadth of the land. So basically, like all the lands, their power.
Mm-hmm.
Um, who was choosing the birth of this their new superpower? Basically,
Jen.
so basically God, because um, it says for me, it says double underline the words "I am raising up," which is in verse 6, and it says, "For lo, I raise up." So God was the one that was giving them horses that were faster than the leopards and as evil as the wolves.
Sorry, I was stuffing some trash bags in a bigger bag and I didn't hear the question.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
I just heard my name.
who was choosing the birth of this new superpower? Basically, quote unquote superpower.
God.
Yeah,
When it said I will raise up,
yeah.
that's the only one who has the authority to do so.
That's another thing that I also thought about. Like, God can only be the person to give any animal, any human, a superpower. So therefore, God.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I wish I had a superpower.
right. So even though we looked at it earlier, let's. She says, "Let's breathe it in once again today." Hebrews 12:6. For the Lord disciplines the one he loves and chastises every son whom he receives. So, generally, the reason we need saving is because we got ourselves into trouble to begin with. We often think of addictions to substances or unhealthy sex, self harming or spending, overeating or gambling as bondages that need to be broken. But we really rarely see the deadly dependencies. The worship of self. Prideful, self centered thinking is always at the root of our sin, and sin inevitably leads to brokenness. There's like no exceptions to that. Acts 13 40 41. Pastor Brandon,
Okay. Over here.
I'm keeping you awake for tonight.
I know. Acts
13
13,
verses 40 through 41.
40 through 41.
Yes, where the Apostle Paul
Okay.
quotes Habakkuk. And
40
it's
through 41. Okay. By the law of Moses. Wait. Oh, no one else did. It listed this differently. Okay, sorry. Therefore, beware lest what is spoken of in the prophets come upon you. Look, you scoffers, marvel and perish, for I'll perform a work in your days, which you will never believe, even if someone declares it to you. Same thing in Habakkuk.
yes, I was gonna say, what's crazy is verse 5 says the same thing. I will work a work in your days, which ye will not believe, though it be told you. So, how does Paul, Brandon, how does Paul use that verse?
He got it directly from Habakkuk.
I was also saying he also kind of used it as a warning to other people.
Yeah, I should have thought about that too. Sorry.
No, I mean that's why we're having a Bible study. It's a discussion based thing. So why do you think he says it could apply to them, quote unquote them?
It can apply to them because God can use them as well to do His bidding.
That that and also in 41, uh, the people that he's talking to, they are quote unquote despisers in my translation. So they're despising God and the way that the world is. So therefore, they are despisers. But Paul warns his fellow people that if they do what Judah did, and that is failing to remember who God is and how to honor Him as the center of our lives, they can face the same kind of judgment. And that I feel like is a warning for us too, because it if we're not careful, we'll be in bondage to the world as well.
I agree with that.
And a quote in the Bible study that like the Bible study that we are doing, but I have the book, like the physical book, um, by John Piper. Satan does not take innocent people captive. Like,
I like that.
yeah, innocent people are innocent because think of people that have never heard the Bible or ever even heard of a Bible before. They're just living their lives.
Well, think about it. He doesn't take the children captive. I mean, he has them slaughtered, but that's not taking them captive.
And also children that like are like infants and babies, they don't know
Hmm.
better. So if they die, they go to heaven immediately because they're innocent.
Right. They're the purest thing on the planet
Yep.
until they hit that age of sense of self.
Age of
Self aware.
accountability.
They become self
Same
aware.
difference.
Yeah.
But so yeah, the devil knows they're innocent. So instead of he's not going to take them captive, so instead he's going to have them killed.
Yep.
Because taking someone captive and leaving them alone are two different things.
Right.
Those he can take captive, he can make do his bidding. Those he cannot, because they are too pure, too innocent, whatever, he does away with them in other ways.
Yeah. So I'll I'll read. There's only a little bit left of four, and then we have five. So, where'd you start?
Are we
So,
doing five tonight, or is that another day?
no. We're gonna do five tonight.
Okay.
He and that brings us back to the news that the Chaldeans are about to carry Jewish captives off into bondage. Imagine that one of the few children, few children. Brayden, You got me saying children.
Sorry.
Imagine that one of the few Chaldeans in Babylon has been making a name for himself. Oh, the word I can't pronounce. No, Nabopolassar manages to climb his way to the top and secure a spot as the first Chaldean king of Babylon. He was not satisfied to rule Babylon as it was. He wanted more. So he formed an alliance with the Medes to successfully confront the superpowers of Assyria and Egypt. It'll only be a short time before Judah gets overtaken too. And guess what the ancient Middle East world map would look like? So, going back to the map that we talked about Double disco. Where's it at? Okay. So it's a lot bigger. Basically, I can't show pictures anymore because I'm one of the non-luxurious people that don't have a phone right now. Anyways, kind of gives you a whole new context for the amazing thing God is about to do. Let's pe- let's be people who study our Bible so well that we don't misrepresent or misinterpret God's promises. Some of them aren't laden with happy news, but all of them are overflowing with useful news. So, let's see. I'll just read it this way. Today's prayer activity involves getting honest about your self centeredness. Notice I did not say if you have any self centeredness. It's a constant battle for most of us. Confess to Him anything He shows you that is not guided by surrender to Him. Any comments before I move on?
Not right
Nope.
now, but it does make sense because I don't think a lot of us do that.
I didn't hear what Jen said.
I said no. No comment.
Okay. So, the last thing I have is the danger of friendly captivity. To gain understanding concerning Habakkuk's prophecy, we will from time to time fast forward to the book of Daniel, where Judah is enduring the exile. Welcome, Babylon. It gives me no small amount of joy every time I read about archaeological, ar- archaeolo- ar-
Archaeological.
yes, thank you, discoveries verifying what we read in the pages of our Bibles. And the excavation site of Babylon supplies many wondrous confirmations. Babylon's ruins lie in modern day Iraq, just 50 miles of Baghdad. The city was excavated between 1899 and 1917 by a German team of archaeologists. One of the fascinating finds is a collection of clay tablets named the Babylonian Chronicles, the one which summarizes the years 605 to 594 BC describes how the nations rose up against Jerusalem. The inscription confirms numerous details of the biblical account, the siege of Jerusalem, the exile of King Jehoiakim, and the stolen treasures. It even gives an exact date for the takeover, March 16th, 596 BC, which is hilarious because my birthday is March 16th.
Well, what's crazy is you saying Babylon. Iraq is where Babylon
I was gonna
once
say,
stood.
ain't you happy you got a best friend who can pronounce certain things even though he doesn't know what he's talking about at times?
But no, see, I'm reading from a book.
Um, as I was
So
saying,
go ahead, Jen.
what I was trying to say was what's neat with you saying that Babylon, Iraq stands where Babylon once stood. My dad, who was in the military, served 3 tours, two of which were Iraq, and I think he was in Baghdad as well.
Which is insane, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's crazy that you're saying that because my dad went to Iraq for Operation Iraqi Freedom, which he was in Baghdad for something, and then Korea, and then Iraq once more. So he technically went to Babylon.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool too.
Hmm. My uncle Charlie, on the topic of location, was baptized in the Jordan River.
I think it would be pretty cool to be baptized in the Jordan River as well.
Agreed. But yeah, no, I had to interject that because I'm like, wait a minute, I know those two locations.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say ditto because I was thinking about being rebaptized.
Well, now to go overseas, you have to have a COVID shot, and I'm not doing that.
No.
That's what I'm saying. They say, "Oh, you're gonna be on a plane. You gotta take this." I'm like, no,
If
you
you're going
can.
over,
I'm like, no, you can. Excuse me for saying this. I'm like, you can kiss my hairy ass because that ain't happening.
language, you said you want to keep it official.
Ass is not a cuss word. Well, if I'm finding out it wasn't a cuss word at all. Still means donkey.
I
Yeah.
don't care. You said to keep it professional, so keep it professional.
I did.
That was not very professional.
Anyways, uh, Habakkuk 1:9-11. Brandon.
Habakkuk 9. Huh?
Chapter 1,
Oh, okay. I was gonna say like, hmm.
verses 9-11.
I think he's getting a little sleepy.
I think he is too. We're
Okay,
almost done.
Habakkuk, chapter 1, verse 11.
9-11.
Oh, 9 through 11. Sorry. Okay. They all come from. They all come for violence. Their forces advance like the east wind. They gather captives like sand. They scoff at kings and they scorn rulers. They deride they I'm saying it right. Deride every stronghold, for they build up sieges, ramps to capture it. Then their mind changes and they trespass, transgress and commit offense. Their own power is their God. Sounds familiar, a little bit familiar.
Yeah, so based on the wording, how frequently do the Babylonians seem to carry off new exiles to their homeland? Quite often,
I was
correct?
thinking about that. I was going to say quite a lot.
Yeah. So, and how do they interact with the rulers of other nations?
They were not very nice.
Yeah, I said from my translation, they scoff at them and they're scornful to them, which, like you said, not very nice.
Big meanings need to learn to take a chill pill.
How does this passage clearly reveal the self absorbed mindset of Babylonia? I was like, it describes them in full detail. They're not nice people. So,
I don't even think they were nice to begin with, probably.
probably not. They were born northern.
So pretty much like the way most Eastern European countries view Vikings as brutish and nasty by nature.
Pretty much. Um, during Habakkuk's lifetime, King No, this word again, Nabo Nabopolassar's reign certainly left a mark on the ancient world, but was short-lived. However, you might recognize the name of his son, the crown prince Nebuchadnezzar. He was the longest reigning, most powerful monarch of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. Under his leadership, the nation held its ground against Assyria and Egypt, eventually taking theirs. Um, Brandon, Daniel chapter 1, verses 1 through 5.
Okay. Daniel chapter 1. Daniel chapter 1, verses what?
1 through 5.
1 through 5. Okay. All right. In the third year of the reign of Jeconiah, I have no idea how to pronounce that, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. The Lord gave Jeconiah, how the hell did he pronounce this? My question.
Is it the. Hold on, let me.
King of Judah, into his hand with part of the vessels of the house of God, and he carried them into the land of Shinar. to the house of his God, and he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God. The people spoke to Ashpenaz, what? The master of his officials, that he should bring some of the sons of Israel, and some of the king's descendants, and some of the nobles, youths in whom was no blemish, who were handsome and skillful in every branch of wisdom, and grafted with understanding and discerning knowledge, as such as had ability in them to serve the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learning and the language of the Chaldeans.
Yeah. So is the word that you cannot pronounce Jehoiakim?
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah. I
And one that was Ashpenaz, if I'm even saying it right. I don't know if I'm saying it. So like Ash and Pananza.
okay. So Jehovah Jeho.
See?
I think it would be pronounced Jehoiakim.
I'm
And
hoping
then
that's correct.
Ash Ashpenaz. I don't
That's
know.
what I was trying to say. That's why I'm going like, what am I saying this? Ashpenaz,
I was
Ashpenanza. Oh,
reading that today, and I was like, Brandon will be able to pronounce that.
there's some names I can't pronounce. I wish I could.
Anyway,
I'll make it easier.
so the questions, and I have two that I have not answered because I was not sure based off of the passage. So when did Babylon take Judah? It says in the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim. Specifically, what city was the stage for battle? Obviously, Jerusalem. What does this passage say ultimately had authority over the outcome? Like Jen said previously, the Lord. And where I got confused is it says, one of the questions says, what physical objects did Nebuchadnezzar take and why? But also, the passage does not say anything about Nebuchadnezzar. So that's one of the questions that I had problems with because chapter 1 verses 1 through 5 does not say anything about Nebuchadnezzar, right?
Right.
So I was confused. And then it said, which of the residents of Jerusalem did he want exiled to Babylon? Again, that passage does not say anything about Nebuchadnezzar. So I don't know
Right.
what residents of Jerusalem he wanted exiled.
Maybe anyone who looked at him funny.
I don't know.
I
Believe it
mean,
or
if
not,
they're big names, I would assume anyone who didn't agree with them or looked at them funny or rebelled against them in any way.
That's possible.
if I'm correct, the Babylonians were pretty tyrannistic, so it's possible.
So they were the ancient day Putin.
Pretty much.
Something like that, yeah.
Well, that's a better name than the first one that came to mind.
Well, if you wanted to say it on here, you could because it's on TikTok, remember?
Yeah, I was
Well,
say.
I was going to say ancient day Nadal Hassan or the other guy who blew up the towers.
I don't.
I forget his name now. So, I think it was something Hassan as well.
Usama bin?
Osama?
Osama, oh yeah, Osama. They were like the ancient day Osamas.
Possibly.
No,
Hold
I'm not gonna make a joke about that. That
So
would be
everything
inappropriate.
I read about Osama bin Laden,
I'll
he
be
was
right back.
tyrannistic. Do what?
I said I'll be right back.
Okay.
I was gonna make a joke about that. I'm like, no, if I was doing something inappropriate, that'd be it. I ain't making that joke.
No jokes of that day.
Yeah.
You respect our first responders. No jokes of that day. However, from what I've read about Osama, is he was rather tyrannistic even in his own country. And then when he decided to make his attack on the United States, that kind of further proves, being tyrannical and you know terrorism is the same thing as being tyrannical.
Hmm.
So they're ancient day terrorists.
Pretty much.
I had to go tame the doggos. The doggos were fighting, and nobody was doing anything about it. Anyways, so Dana basically gives her some of her life story. So, but the one thing that I underlined was, I wonder if you have a hard time seeing all the great qualities God has planted in you. So then she goes into, it seems the plan of Nebuchadnezzar was to bring all the influencers to his capital so he could indoctrinate, bleh, indoctrinate, indoctrinate them. There we go. Rather than the backbreaking slavery the Egyptians used to put the Israelites into bondage, Babylon would use education, opportunity, and good food as seduction. That does not sound like captivity. It was what you might call friendly captivity. The king of Babylon sought to keep his captives living and breathing, but very dead to who they were and God. Uh, so Pastor Brandon, Daniel,
Yes.
first Daniel chapter 1, 6 through 19.
6 through 19. Okay, we're gonna do a long one, ain't we?
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's worth it.
Now among them were the sons of Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, if I'm saying that name correctly, Mishael, and Azariah, to whom the commander of the officials gave names. And he gave to Daniel the name of Belshazzar, to Hannah Shadrach, to Mishael Meshach, and Azariah Abednego. But Daniel proposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's food, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the master of the officials that he might not defile himself. Now God had brought Daniel into favor and compassion with the master of the officials. The master of the officials said to Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who has appointed your food and your drink, for why should he see your face worse looking than the youths who are your age? Then you would endanger my head before the king. Then Daniel said to the steward, whom the master of the officials had sent over Daniel, Hannah, Mishael, and Azariah, please test your servants for 10 days, and let them give us vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then let our countenance be looked upon before you, the countenance of the youths who eat of the portion of the king's food, as you see, deal with your servants. So he consented to them in this matter, and tested them for 10 days. At the end of 10 days, their countenance appeared furier, if I'm saying that correctly, and fatter than all the youths who ate the portion of the king's food. Thus the guard continued to take away the portion of their food and the wine that they were to drink, and gave them vegetables. As for these four youths, God gave them knowledge and skill in every branch of learning and wisdom. And Daniel had understanding in all kinds of visions and dreams. Now, the end of 10 days that the king had set for them to be brought in, the master of the officials brought them before Nebuchadnezzar. The king spoke with them, and among them all, Allah, none was found like Daniel, Hannah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore, they served before the king. You said through 19, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So my exercise was from that passage writing down their king given names and their God given names. So their Nebuchadnezzar given names was, Belteshazzar, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Belteshazzar means protector of the king. Shadrach means um, commander of the moon god. Meshach meant what is a coup, or what a coup is. Abednego meant servant of Nabu, whereas Daniel's name meant God is my judge. Hananiah meant God is gracious. Mishael meant who is like God, and Azariah meant God is helped. So, what can we think that the point of changing their names? What was the point basically? Was he changed their names to worship Nebuchadnezzar?
Personally, I don't even know what the purpose was of trying to change their names.
Well, the names the king gave them are all centered around the king, and then the names that God gave them more describe the things. Okay, the names that you listed that the king gave them are based on their function to the king, on what it means to what they are meant to do to the king or for the king. Whereas the names you listed are the meanings of that God gave them or things God did for them.
I feel like Nebuchadnezzar knew, in a way, that their names were to worship God.
Yes.
Like he knew that in a way. So therefore he wanted to change their names to worship him.
Yeah. Instead of being God centered, they're him centered.
Yes.
So selfish, self
Yes.
centered.
So we now we live in a proverbial like Babylon. So the names of our gods are different because we don't live back in those days, but the names of our gods are different. Going back to, we are all in exile. The Babylonian captivity is a picture of something supernatural. Again, we are all living in this crazy, stupid world, but we're all still longing to feel like we're home or in heaven, like I said at the beginning of this study. So, what similarities are like in our world today, and also go back to their world back in the day? There's still a lot. We still worship the way my dad put it when I was a kid. Back in the day, like in the Bible times, they worshiped the penis, is what my dad told me. Like everything was about, like, if you could imagine social media back in the Bible's times, it was all about the penis and like
Oh, I know what you mean.
men.
The obelisks.
Yes, and the men and their sexuality and their masculinity. In today's world, it's all about butt and boobs.
Oh, there's a lot of wieners too. Don't. There are still a lot of.
yes, there is,
People
but
who
now, like
do it.
in social media now, all you like if you pull up Instagram, all Instagram is Kim Kardashian, any of
Hmm.
the Kardashians, any of the Jenners, all these supermodels, like that.
Everything about booty and
Oh,
everything like that,
I've seen
basically.
a lot about. I've seen a lot about. I mean, I've seen a lot about the boobs and the butt thing, but I've seen a lot about the hot dog thing too.
I do too.
Instagram, Facebook,
Snapchat.
Twitter.
Twitch. Well, maybe not as much on Twitch, but there's still some.
But there's a lot of similarities with the sinfulness of this world and versus the sinfulness of the Bible's world too.
Oh, without a doubt. Everything that is talked about within the Bible lines up to what is going on in the world today.
Yeah.
We don't change for some reason. We are stuck in our ways.
That's why I keep saying history just keeps repeating itself.
Right. Well, I was saying, if we don't learn from history, we're doomed to repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, if they learn from it, it still repeats. So,
Right. So she goes on to say, the enemy does not want you to forget who God is. He seeks to create so much amnesia in your life, spiritual amnesia again, that you aren't even sure who you are. Some of the things that Satan has tried to change her name, and I kept this in parentheses because we're the same, me and her, in this way. So, some of the things that Satan has tried to change my name to include whore, unusable, without hope, hypocrite, and unwanted.
yep.
So, I'm gonna read this part because the last when I was doing this Bible study with myself at like 7 o'clock, um, I remembered that the last time we did a Bible study, Jen, you kept saying that you have never really, you just kind of feel unwanted. So this part stuck out to me because I thought about you. You unmuted yourself, so I'm gonna let you
I was
speak
going to
freely.
say
Okay?
something, but my brain blanked.
So I'll just read. Okay. So for Dana, this is what she says. It took nearly decades for me to identify the last lie on my list, probably because the enemy planted it when I was so young and tender. At the age of 4 months, my baby brother became very ill. Aunts and uncles cared for me while my mom and dad cared for their infant son in the hospital. I distinctly remember standing in a parking lot with an aunt as we looked up to the hospital window where my mother and father were waving to me. My baby brother was in my mother's arms. What was meant to be a connection to my family, Satan used to cause a disconnection. He whispered into my heart, "You don't belong." By the time I was an adult, I always just kind of felt like I didn't belong. In friend groups, in my family, at Bible studies, on the stage, it even showed up in my marriage. There was always a sense that everyone would be content if I were just not in the picture, or that I was not necessary. The lie never crippled me. I served Jesus well with my limp, but eventually I just wanted to be free. In November of 2018, I was with a group of friends in the Dominican Republic. We had been sitting in God's presence and praying for many hours when my dear friend Lynn asked me what I needed God to do in my heart and mind. I told her I was feeling as if I didn't belong. I told my friends about my childhood memory. Lynn asked God simply to help me to see how my mother and father felt towards me when they were looking down at 3-year-old Dana in the parking lot. I was suddenly overwhelmed with love that I have never known. My friends say I curled up like a child and began to cry like one, but they were tears of joy. Of course, I had been told many times by my mother how she felt. It's quite another thing for the truth filled voice of God to thunder into your heart and mind. I was aware that the love I was feeling was from my mother and my father, but also from God. I will never wear the name unwanted again. For the rest of my living days, I will be like Daniel, who did not take his Babylonian name. I know my identity. I am a chosen daughter. I not only got to know this is my name, I feel it. If you have forgotten who you are, I want to help you remember in your prayer time today. I want to ask God to help you identify any names the enemy has given you and begin to replace them with God's truth. So for me, I had a I have a 3 space spot to say names that the enemy tries to give me. My 3 names are whore, addict, and panicky petunia. Panicky petunia I got from an American Girl magazine that I got a long time ago, but I have always identified as a panicky petunia because, I mean, my anxiety has never left me. So, but Jen, from where you said that you just kind of feel like, I want to say like a friend of convenience, I guess would be the way to put it.
Yeah.
Ephesians 1:3-8, where it proclaims that you are a child of God. And this I mean, this stuck out to me for you, but also could be anybody. Blessed be the God and the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who hath blessed us with all spiritual blessings in heavenly places in Christ, according he hath chosen us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and live without blame before him in love, having predestinated us to the adoption of children by Jesus Christ to himself, according to the good pleasure of his will, to the praise of the glory of his grace, wherein he hath made us accepted and in the beloved, in whom we have redemption through his blood, forgiveness of sins, and according to the riches of his grace, wherein he hath abounded towards us in all wisdom and prudence. I just, you're a chosen child. And like I've said before, you have us, you have me, but you're his daughter. I mean, I know it sucks that like some friends like they just choose to, because you're a convenience. I've felt that before. So, but at least
I'm grateful for
you
you
know,
guys too.
huh?
I said I'm grateful for you guys too.
At least you got us, and before you got us, you got God too. So,
Right.
but I'm sorry. I just felt like I had to tell you that.
Sorry, I'm a little quiet. I'm trying to keep from crying.
You're good, Brandon.
But
Shall we hear from
yeah.
Pastor Brandon?
Yeah, I'm still here.
What were we gonna say, Jen? I'm sorry I interrupted you.
I was gonna say that really hits home that what you were reading.
I sometimes struggle with the unwanted feeling. I mean, I cut my hair and my mom paid for it and paid for a lot of makeup too, just because some personal problems. But I feel the unwanted thing.
It definitely sucks.
Mm-hmm.
That's why for me, when I make this move, it's somewhat hard, but it's gonna be easy at the same time because I got nothing else holding me back here anymore. I had enough.
So, I guess the last thing I have to say is with all of the feelings that Satan tries to give us, just I guess for me, ask God to identify a Bible verse or a sentence that He is trying to get you to embrace and understand. And honestly, as stupid as it sounds, um, DeQuay put in the Bible study group chat Psalms 91, and I looked it up, and it's not making any sense. But I'm trying to figure out what Psalm 91 means to me. So that's
I
where
may
I'm
have
at.
to check that out.
Hmm?
I said I may have to check that out.
I mean, he just randomly put it in the Bible study group chat one day, and I was like,
I didn't read that yet, but I was about to say, is there a specific verse or something like that? Because he could just put a verse in there. I would have had a good look at it, but I guess he means the whole entire thing.
no, it's a whole chapter. I looked it up and I read it about like 10 times, and but I don't, I didn't understand it at the time, but I, I keep going back to it, and I'm like, what is this supposed to mean? Why was this sent to me, and why is it still sticking in my brain? So,
It must mean something.
yeah, because it keeps like, I'll be at work, busy as hell, and my brain's like, Psalm 91.
Hmm.
So, I don't know.
I'll
Should we,
definitely have to read that tonight.
I mean, while we're on here, we can always just,
I got it up here right now. It's only 16 verses.
yeah, it, like I said, I've read it before multiple times
All right,
since
let
he
me
sent it, and I still am like, what? We could try to decipher it tonight.
let's see
That
here.
work?
You want to try, Mar?
Yeah,
All right. I need my coffee. I don't want to do another energy drink. I need coffee.
I don't need to. I don't have to be in like trying to actively go to sleep till for another 20 minutes. So let's go.
Okay. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge, my fortress, my God in whom I trust. Sorry for the noise in the background, by the way. That's not me. That's the morons in the other room. Surely he shall deliver you from the snare of the hunter, and from the deadly pestilence. He shall cover you with his feathers. I'm saying that right. And under his wings, oh, I did say it right. You shall find protection. His faithfulness shall be your shield and wall. You shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor of the narrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that pursues in darkness, nor of the destruction that strikes at noonday. 1,000 may fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not come near you. Only with your eyes shall you behold and see the reward of the wicked, because you have made the Lord, who is my refuge, even the Most High, your dwelling. There shall be no evil befall you, neither shall any plague come near your tent. For he shall give his angels charge over you, to guard you in all your ways. They shall bear you up in their hands, lest you strike your foot against a stone. You shall tread upon the lion and adder. Usually with adder, I want to clarify this, that usually could be says cockatrice, but it's actually referring to a snake. The young lion and the serpent you shall trample underfoot. Because he has set his love upon me, therefore I will deliver him. I will set him on high, because he has known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble, and I will deliver him and honor him with long life. I will satisfy him and show him my salvation.
To me, it sounds like it's saying he's our protector.
Well, I also looked at verses 2, 4, and 5. And for me, it's pointed out to me that I will say of my Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in Him I will trust. And then He shall cover thee with His feathers, and under His wings shalt thou trust, and His trust shall be thy shield and buckler. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor the arrow that flieth by. Those ones stick out to me because of my anxiety. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the rest of them, other than with he shall call upon me and I will answer him, I will be with him in trouble, I will deliver him and honor him, kind of sounds like if I get to the end of struggling with my anxiety. But I don't know.
The
The
word that keeps coming to me is protector.
And even if, the word protector were to come to me, I mean, that makes sense because protector with
Hmm.
anxiety.
Right. Even where it says, they will fall at your right hand, they will fall here, they'll fall there, but they won't come to you. Does that not sound like protection?
Yeah.
Keeping you, okay, like a mama duck when she has her babies under her wings. Is she not protecting her babies?
Yeah.
To me, the word protector keeps coming to mind. But that's just me.
Well, that might be God talking to you.
Very possible. Very likely.
What are your thoughts, Brandon?
Same thing, basically saying he's a protector. Basically the same thing. And DeQuay tried calling me too. I'm like, I'm busy.
Wade tried calling you
Yeah,
while
he
we're
tried to
talking
call.
about Psalm 91,
Yeah,
the thing that he sent.
pretty much. Right when I was reading the Bible, he starts, go ahead and call me. I'm like, dude, I'm busy.
But he was also the one that sent Psalm 91.
Exactly.
That's kind of crazy.
Not trying to be unprofessional or anything right now, but I swear from here, it feels like I'm listening to freaking circus music from here all the way in the other room. That's all I keep hearing them play, some kind of weird anime circus music. I'm like, yes, that's right. You two are clowns. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that
All I can think of is
circus,
Madagascar.
that circus, afro, fuck it
Poke
up.
it up, poke it up, poke it up, Afro. I forgot about that. Afro, circus, afro, circus, afro. Look at that, look at that, look at that, afro.
You're not good at that voice.
Because I got a sore throat. I've been getting under the weather. Well, it's not really like hurt, but it's trying to. Like it's like feeling my throat.
Do not come down here sick, my guy.
I'm not gonna do that. That's why I'm gonna fix it before that happens.
Not with orange
Well,
juice.
don't get too stupid because we're still live.
I'm not gonna do orange juice because I don't want to be pooping my butt off again.
Brandon,
No, I'm doing
No,
that because
okay,
I'm doing it because the last time I did that, because she told me.
again, I'm like cleaning the bathrooms. I don't need to imagine that and start gagging.
Well, I didn't think I was gonna be going to the bathroom having the chocolate squirties from orange juice either.
Ah!
it's okay. My parents already know about that.
Nasty.
That's the
They-
only way I know how to get better is through orange juice because I don't have vitamin C tablets. I I was not gonna talk about anything else other than that. Sheesh.
I don't trust you.
well, let's get off of here before we start.
Is there anything else you want to cover other than that for now?
Nope, I finished mine.
Okay.
Jen,
I'm good.
Brandon.
I'm good right now. I have no further comments right now.
Okay.
Other than that, are we going to do another one tomorrow, or what's the story behind that?
I have to work 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. tomorrow, so probably not.
Okay. What other days you off?
Tomorrow or the next. What's today? Monday. Wednesday, I work 4 to 11, so I'll get up and do a study on Wednesday.
Okay. Then we do for Wednesday then. Alrighty then. In that case, for everyone who I guess no one really show up, but whoever missed it, it'll be posted. So
To everybody, for anybody that's gonna be watching in the future. Good night.
good night and hope to see everyone on possibly Wednesday.
Yep.